The deserved downfall of Amber Heard. Amber Heard was once Hollywood's rising star, but today, her name has become synonymous with lies, scandals, and downfall. She went from walking red carpets in glamorous gowns to walking into courtrooms under the eyes of the world. Her story is not just about fame, but about how quickly the public can turn when the truth starts to unfold. From her shocking lies, to the courtroom battles that exposed her, to the ultimate collapse of her career, this is the journey of Amber Heard's rise and her very public downfall. Amber Laura Heard was born in Austin, Texas in 1986. She grew up in a conservative household, but even as a teenager, she longed for something bigger. She dropped out of high school at just 17 and moved to Los Angeles with a dream most would call impossible. She started with small roles in TV shows and low-budget films, grinding her way through auditions. Eventually, she landed her first noticeable role in Never Back Down in 2008, where she played the love interest of Sean Ferris. That film brought her attention, and casting directors started to see her as a new face with both beauty and potential. As the years passed, Amber began to gain momentum in Hollywood. She appeared in movies like Pineapple Express and The Stepfather, but it was The Rum Diary in 2011 where her career truly shifted. Not only did the film bring her into the spotlight, but it also introduced her to Johnny Depp, a connection that would define her future in ways no one could have imagined. By the mid-2010s, she had positioned herself as a fashionable and outspoken actress. With her activism and bold presence, the media embraced her as a rising star. She was cast in Warner Bros.' massive Aquaman franchise. And for a while, it looked like Amber Heard was on the fast track to becoming one of Hollywood's leading women. Amber's career was gaining momentum, but it was her relationship with Johnny Depp that would put her in the headlines more than any role ever could. The two first met in 2009 on the set of The Rum Diary. At the time, Johnny was one of the biggest stars on the planet, known for his role as Captain Jack Sparrow and adored for his unique charisma. Amber, on the other hand, was still an up-and-coming actress trying to make her mark. On set, their chemistry was undeniable, and even though both were involved with other people at the time, sparks flew between them. A few years later, their paths crossed again, and this time, the attraction couldn't be ignored. Johnny, who had been with Vanessa Paradis for over a decade and shared 2 children with her, ended his long-term relationship. Amber, too, left her partner, and soon the two became Hollywood's newest couple. To the outside world, it looked like a fairy tale romance. The glamorous older movie star with his mysterious aura, and the young, beautiful actress rising in the industry. The media loved them, and the paparazzi followed their every move. In 2015, Johnny and Amber tied the knot in a private ceremony. Photos of the wedding painted a picture of happiness and luxury, but behind the scenes, things weren't as perfect as they seemed. Friends and insiders would later reveal that the relationship was volatile from the very beginning. There were constant arguments, jealousy, and reports of heated fights. Both of them had fiery personalities, and their love story quickly began to look more like a battlefield. Amber often portrayed herself as the supportive wife, but those close to Johnny began noticing changes in him. He seemed stressed, withdrawn, and at times even broken down. On the surface, their marriage still had the shine of Hollywood glamour, but inside their home, it was a storm. Rumors swirled that police were called to their residence on multiple occasions, though nothing concrete surfaced at the time. For fans and outsiders, the cracks weren't yet visible. What the world didn't know was that this relationship, once seen as passionate and romantic, was about to turn into one of the most explosive celebrity scandals of the decade. A scandal that would eventually bring both of them into a courtroom, with the entire world watching. In 2016, just a little over a year into their marriage, Amber Heard shocked the world when she filed for divorce from Johnny Depp. Almost immediately, headlines exploded as she accused him of domestic abuse. She appeared outside a Los Angeles courthouse with visible marks on her face, claiming Johnny had struck her with a phone during an argument. The image spread like wildfire, and for millions of people, it painted Johnny Depp as yet another powerful Hollywood man abusing his wife behind closed doors. At that time, the Me Too movement was at its peak, and Amber positioned herself as a brave woman standing up against an abuser. The timing made her story even more powerful. Media outlets ran with it, portraying her as a survivor and turning Johnny into a villain almost overnight. Hollywood reacted swiftly. Studios began distancing themselves from Depp, and some of his upcoming projects were quietly put on hold. By 2018, the situation escalated further when Amber published an op-ed in the Washington Post. In the article, Amber didn't mention Johnny by name, but she claimed to be a public figure representing domestic abuse. The implication was clear. She was talking about Depp. With that one piece, her reputation as a victim was cemented in the public eye. She became a spokesperson for women's rights, speaking at events and partnering with organizations. Her supporters hailed her as courageous, while Johnny's reputation continued to sink. The damage to Depp's career was brutal. Almost immediately, Disney cut ties with him, effectively ending his role as Captain Jack Sparrow in the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise, a character that had become iconic worldwide. Warner Brothers also removed him from the Fantastic Beasts films. Johnny, once one of the most bankable stars in Hollywood, was suddenly seen as toxic, all because of Amber's words. For a time, Amber was untouchable. She secured high-profile endorsements, became a face for activism, and her role in Aquaman made her part of one of Warner Bros.' most successful superhero films. The media praised her for her bravery, and she walked red carpets as though nothing could touch her. But behind this carefully built image, cracks began to show. People started digging deeper into her stories, and inconsistencies began to emerge. Some of her claims didn't line up with evidence, and leaked audio recordings painted a very different picture of their marriage, one where Amber wasn't just the victim, but at times the aggressor. Still, in 2018 and 2019, the world largely believed Amber's narrative. She was being celebrated, while Johnny was left fighting to save not only his career, but his name. It was a turning point. The Washington Post op-ed wasn't just another article. It was the spark that lit one of the most public and bitter celebrity court battles in history. A battle that would eventually flip everything upside down and reveal truths Amber never expected the world to see. Johnny Depp had remained quiet for years as Amber's story spread across the media, but by 2019, he had reached his breaking point. He knew that if he didn't fight back, his career and legacy would be destroyed forever. So he launched a $50 million defamation lawsuit against Amber Heard over her Washington Post op-ed. This was not just about money, this was about clearing his name in front of the world. Before that, he had already sued the British tabloid The Sun for labeling him a wife-beater. That case went to trial in the UK in 2020, and although Johnny lost, the world got its first real glimpse at the inner chaos of his marriage. Both Amber and Johnny took the stand, and shocking details came out. Still, the UK judge ruled in favor of the paper, saying their reporting was substantially true. Many thought that would be the end of Depp's fight, but Johnny wasn't backing down. The Virginia case against Amber was different. This wasn't about a tabloid. This was about her direct words and the damage they caused. The trial began in 2022 and was broadcast live to millions across the globe. For the first time, the world could watch every testimony, every cross-examination, every moment of drama unfold in real time. And it was in that courtroom that Amber's carefully built image began to crumble. Johnny came prepared. His legal team presented recordings, photos, and witnesses that contradicted Amber's claims. One of the most damaging pieces of evidence was an audio tape where Amber could be heard admitting to hitting Johnny and mocking him for saying he was abused. In one chilling moment, she told him, "Tell the world, Johnny. Tell them I, Johnny Depp, a man, I'm a victim too, and see how many people believe you." That single recording shook everything. Suddenly, people began to realize Johnny might not have been the monster he was painted to be. Meanwhile, Amber took the stand with emotional testimony, often breaking down in tears. But her stories were inconsistent, and the internet noticed. Social media users clipped moments of her testimony, pointing out contradictions or strange behavior. Memes went viral. The "My dog stepped on a bee" line became a global joke overnight. What was meant to showcase her as a victim only fueled more doubt. As the days went by, Johnny's calm, witty responses contrasted sharply with Amber's emotional and sometimes theatrical performance. The court of public opinion began shifting rapidly. Hashtags like "YAR, Justice for Johnny Depp" trended daily. Millions of fans tuned into live streams, rooting for him and criticizing her every word. YouTubers, TikTok creators, and commentators dissected the trial like it was the biggest show on earth. And in many ways, it was. This was more than a legal battle. It was a cultural shift. For years, society had been taught to believe all women. But Johnny's case showed the world that sometimes the story isn't so simple. Sometimes men can be victims too. And if his evidence was true, Amber had weaponized the very movement that had once elevated her to power. By the end of the trial, the momentum was clear. The once untouchable Amber Heard was no longer the hero of her story. The tide had turned, and the world was now seeing her not as a victim, but as a manipulator whose lies were unraveling under the pressure of truth. The Virginia courtroom became more than just a place for a defamation case. It became a stage for the world's most watched celebrity drama. Millions tuned in daily, not just for legal arguments, but for the shocking, bizarre, and often unbelievable moments that unfolded between Amber Heard and Johnny Depp. It was reality TV on steroids, except the stakes were very real: reputations, careers, and truth itself. One of the trial's defining features was how differently the two presented themselves. Johnny Depp came across as calm, even humorous at times, often making the jury and audience laugh with his quick wit. He didn't shy away from admitting his flaws. He openly spoke about his struggles with drugs and alcohol, but he insisted he had never raised a hand against Amber. This honesty, paired with his steady demeanor, made him relatable and human. The jury and the public could see the man behind the headlines. Amber, however, struggled to win sympathy. On the stand, she broke into tears often, describing brutal assaults and terrifying moments. But people watching noticed something odd. Her tears didn't seem to match her expressions. The internet called it crying without crying. Clips of her wiping her face when no tears were visible spread like wildfire online. Each inconsistency fed into the growing belief that she was acting, not testifying. Then came the contradictions. Evidence presented by Johnny's legal team showed that some of Amber's stories simply didn't add up. She claimed her face was bruised, but paparazzi photos taken the next day showed no marks. She said she had used makeup to cover injuries, but the cosmetic brand she mentioned later revealed their product hadn't even existed at the time of her alleged abuse. Every time one of her claims was dismantled, public opinion hardened against her. And then there were the bizarre viral moments. One of the most famous was when Amber spoke about her dog stepping on a bee, delivering the line in such a strange tone that the internet instantly turned it into a meme. Millions of TikToks were made mocking her, further destroying her credibility. Instead of gaining sympathy, she became an internet punchline. Meanwhile, Johnny's testimony gave the world moments that went beyond legal facts. He shared stories of his childhood abuse, his struggles, and his deep pain over losing his reputation and roles. He came across as a man broken down by false accusations, but determined to clear his name. His fans rallied behind him harder than ever, and even casual viewers found themselves rooting for him. Outside the courtroom, the backlash against Amber grew louder every day. Petitions to remove her from Aquaman 2 crossed millions of signatures. Brands and influencers distanced themselves from her. YouTubers covering the trial racked up millions of views, with countless creators dissecting her testimony and exposing inconsistencies. Amber was not just losing in the courtroom, she was losing in the court of public opinion on a scale rarely seen before. The courtroom drama didn't just expose Amber Heard's lies, it cemented her downfall. The more she tried to convince the world, the less people believed her. And as the trial drew to a close, it was only a matter of time before the verdict sealed her fate forever. When the trial finally reached its conclusion in June 2022, the world was holding its breath. After weeks of shocking testimony, viral clips, and a non-stop media circus, the jury delivered its verdict, and it was devastating for Amber Heard. The jury found that her Washington Post op-ed had defamed Johnny Depp, and they awarded him $10 million in compensatory damages plus $5 million in punitive damages, though the latter was reduced under Virginia law. Amber was granted just $2 million in her countersuit, a small consolation compared to the heavy financial and reputational blow she had suffered. For Amber, however, it was the final nail in the coffin. She released a statement almost immediately, saying she was heartbroken and that the verdict represented a setback for women. She claimed that Depp's power, influence, and legal team had swayed the jury, but the public wasn't buying it anymore. For many, her statement sounded like the same manipulation and deflection they had witnessed throughout the trial. Instead of sympathy, it fueled even more anger. The fallout was immediate and brutal. Hollywood, which had cautiously stood by Amber during the years of her accusations, began to back away. Her role in Aquaman 2, already the subject of public outrage, was slashed down to a few minutes of screen time. Fans who had once rallied behind her now turned their backs, flooding her social media with criticism. She had become one of the most disliked actresses in the industry. Amber Heard's story ends not with the glitz and glamour of Hollywood, but with silence, rejection, and infamy. She once stood on red carpets as a symbol of beauty and success, but today her name is remembered for scandal and deceit. What was supposed to be a career-defining marriage to Johnny Depp became the very reason her career collapsed. She didn't just lose roles, she lost the trust of the public, and that is something no PR team or Hollywood comeback can buy back. The irony of her downfall is that she tried to destroy someone else's reputation, but in the end, she destroyed her own. She thought the Washington Post op-ed would cement her as a hero, but instead, it became the evidence that tore her credibility apart. She wanted the world to believe her, but the trial showed people a different reality, one where she was exposed for lies, inconsistencies, and manipulation. Her downfall is more than just a Hollywood scandal. It's a cautionary tale about the power of truth and the reach of public opinion. In the age of social media, every contradiction is exposed, every misstep replayed, and every false word judged by millions. The very platforms that once celebrated her became the platforms that humiliated her, turning her into a global symbol of disgrace. Amber Heard's story is a reminder that fame is fragile, and public trust is even more fragile. Once it's broken, it rarely comes back. She tried to silence Johnny Depp with lies, but instead, the truth silenced her. In the end, Hollywood may forgive, but the public never forgets. And Amber Heard's name will forever carry the weight of her downfall, a downfall she truly deserved.